We are live, and I am going to. All right. So I think we are live by now. So hello everyone, and welcome to the second edition of the Boundless webinar series. I'm Carlota Ramos. I'm the marketing manager here at Boundless, and you should see here on the screen with me, Cindy Barks, who is Boundless Digital's co-founder and CTO. So for those of you who are participating in this meeting for the first time, Boundless webinar series is a series of 30 minutes sessions where we're going to show you how you can use the Boundless Digital platform to automate your Cisco Meraki network infrastructure by using the Meraki APIs. We'll be hosting new BWS meetings, so Boundless webinar series meetings, every 2 weeks during the month of June. So if you haven't seen the full program and you want to take a look, you should see somewhere above here a button where you can go and check the program, or you can directly go to go.boundlessdigital.com/BWS, and you can see the full program version of that. So just one last note before we start. For those of you who have any questions during the event, please don't hesitate to ask them on the Click Meeting chat. You should find it on the right side of your screen. At the end of the event, we're going to allocate some time to go through these questions, but if we don't have enough time to answer all of them, we promise to answer all the questions, all the remaining questions on our LinkedIn page. So if you don't follow us yet on LinkedIn, this may be a good time to start. Just go on LinkedIn, type Boundless Digital, and start following us from today. So that's all for me. And without further ado, we can start our meeting. Sydney?
Okay, great. Thank you, Carlota. So hi, welcome again to the Boundless webinar series. And just to make sure you're in the right place, are you a part of an IT team where you might often find yourself performing manual, repetitive, and time-consuming administration tasks? And maybe you would like to automate some of these tasks so that you can become more efficient, cut out errors, and reduce downtime. But maybe your team doesn't have the time or resources to dive into API programming by yourself, and you just need something so that you can get the job done faster. So if that sounds like you, then right now you're in the right place. And I am just going to open my presentation. Okay, there we go. So in the next 30 minutes, we will show you ways that you can automate your Meraki network management task using the Meraki APIs, and without writing a single line of code. Today, we'll be focusing on Boundless Flex templates. They're just like Meraki templates, meaning that you can apply a unique configuration throughout your entire organization, but they also give you enhanced flexibility, which goes far beyond the native Meraki templates. And that gives you unlimited customization options and support for a wider variety of network types. Just to introduce myself again before we start, my name is Sydney, and I'm the co-founder and CTO of Boundless Digital. For 7 years now, we've worked with over 200 Cisco Meraki customers and partners, helping them to deploy tens of thousands of Wi-Fi hotspots and captive portals worldwide. We've also developed many customized scripts using the Cisco Meraki APIs, and we've helped IT teams to speed up their work and reduce the number of manual errors they face. Now, if you couldn't join us for the first speed session, let me just give you a quick recap of what we talked about. We started by asking, what is network automation and why is it important? Now, you've probably seen for yourself that when you're managing a large organization, you often spend time running repetitive, complex tasks, and these can require your full concentration for long periods of time. And all it takes is one small mistake, and that can cost you hours of time. Unfortunately, this happens all the time when you're manually configuring your networks. And the question I have to ask you is, what if you could get rid of that manual part of the network process? Meaning, what if you could automate parts of your configuration management? We've seen in our experience that would help you almost completely eliminate accidental human error and accomplish 100 times more work than you did before with the same amount of effort. And because you reduce accidental errors, that means that you can expect a lot less unplanned downtime for your networks and resolve issues much more quickly. You can observe a huge drop in the number of support tickets that you see because your users won't experience as many issues that come from mismanaged configurations. And that means that you can prevent a large number of errors from ever happening in the first place. And for the ones that do happen, you can resolve those much more quickly. So that frees up your time as a network administrator so that you can focus your energy on more innovative tasks and be a lot more productive. Now, we also looked at last time at the concept of an API. When it comes to managing networks via automation, APIs are now the preferred method over CLIs for automating your network because they give you much more flexibility when it comes to integrating with custom scripts, and they're much simpler to use than learning complex CLI commands. We also looked at the Boundless Batch Network Creator, and that's a solution for deploying large numbers of networks using the Cisco Meraki APIs with Boundless. The Batch Network Creator lets you deploy thousands of Meraki networks and devices within minutes. You can define a CSV file that has all of the parameters for your network, such as tags, devices, templates, SSID configurations, and security rules. And then you can define your own custom workflow for creating your network. That means that for every network that gets created, it gets created with no mistakes, and it results in a much faster, simpler deployment process for you. Now, this goes much further than the network creator that you might see on the Meraki dashboard because it lets you configure a much larger number of steps, and you can have a much wider command of the parameters you can configure. And this is all because we use the Meraki APIs for the configuration process. So now, let's take a look at a real-world situation. Imagine you have a fully grown Meraki organization, and you might have hundreds or thousands of networks that you need to manage and configure. What's the best way for you to do that most efficiently? We've noticed that there are two general cases. There's a simple case, and then there's a more complex case. The simple case applies when you always have the exact same configuration to apply to multiple networks. This could be, for example, if you have a large retail deployment where all of the stores need to be the exact same, or it could cover the scenario where you have a large teleworker fleet and a large number of remote workers that are connecting over VPN. For simple cases such as these, the Meraki templates work very well. They give you one unique place where you can make your configuration changes, and those changes will automatically be applied to each network that's bound to the template. However, we've seen that many times the simple case might not exactly fulfill your needs the way you need to have them. If you have special needs or need a bit more flexibility, then you might run into a few restrictions that could prevent you from using native Meraki templates. For example, if you need to configure large numbers of MV or camera networks or system manager networks, then unfortunately, you're out of luck because today those network types are not supported by native Meraki templates. Also, there are a few quirks when it comes to using Meraki templates that might not be ideal for you. For example, if you're using a unique VLAN subnetting for your VLANs, then you don't have control over the IP range that gets allocated because it's randomly generated from the available address space. So that means that it randomly sets the IPs for your MX devices and the IP range for your networks. Now you can go in and change these settings manually, but if you have a large number of networks, that can become very time consuming and error prone. Another restriction is that you might have a base configuration that you like to apply to use for all of your networks. But then for a few networks, you might want to make custom tiny changes or customizations. While Meraki does allow you to make some customizations for some settings, such as the VLAN range, not all settings are customizable. So you might easily find yourself stuck and without the ability to set up or configure your network exactly the way you need it. So if you need to customize network settings after applying a universal base configuration, Meraki's recommended practice for today is not to use the templates. In the past, this meant that you would be stuck manually managing your network configurations. And that quickly becomes unsustainable once you get to a pretty sizable number of networks in your organization. The consequences of managing networks manually can be quite severe. For example, when you're managing or applying configuration changes, one small mistake, as we mentioned, can lead to errors that can take you hours or days to identify and fix. Or you might have cases where you make tiny custom one-off changes to your networks. And these are usually undocumented and can be hard to communicate across your entire team. That creates problems when it comes to standardizing and having a base standardization for your networks. Overall, the network management task becomes a very slow and tedious process, which can waste your valuable time. And that's especially painful right now when we're at a time where teams are facing surges in workload and massive budget cuts, which make it difficult for you to hire extra team members to help out. So in this environment, you need every bit of optimization that you can get. So the question is, how can you avoid these consequences that come from manual network configuration? And how can you become more efficient? Well, until recently, there was no solution. However, Meraki's new Dashboard API offers you the chance to finally address these challenges. In order to use the Meraki Dashboard API, first, you go to the Meraki dashboard and you generate an API key. Once you do that, there are a wealth of API calls that you can make that let you configure all the parameters for your network. To find those, you simply go to the Meraki documentation, and you can see on the left a list of calls that let you configure things such as Bluetooth clients, networks, clients, and anything when it comes to your parameterization. If you have members of your IT team who are already experienced programmers and know how to do API development, then you can find everything that you need to get started right here. But I have to warn you that programming an API by itself, an API is not just a magic solution in a box. And if you decide to take the route of developing your own API program, then there's a few things that you have to consider. First, you should be aware that writing a proper computer program for network management takes a lot of time to get right. It's easy to come up with a simple, quick solution, but you really have to think about the edge cases and the exceptions. It's because with automation, you can always automate things to a large scale and do things very quickly. But if you make a mistake, you'll automate your mistakes just as well. And this can easily come if you're not too sure about what you're doing. You also have to think about dev resources. This could require you to create and maintain and manage a specialized team that you wouldn't normally have to think about when it comes to applying your normal work. And developing computer programs and custom scripts, that comes with a hidden cost. The first cost is the initial cost of redeploying your team to another topic. That means that your original work becomes deprioritized. And the thing that most people are not aware of is that when it comes to developing a computer program, most of the cost comes to maintaining that program after the development is finished. In fact, 2/3 of the cost can come from maintenance. And it's also well known in the software engineering industry that the average program can take 3 times as long to develop as initially predicted and cost twice as much. So you can easily find yourself falling into a trap if this is not your area of expertise. And finally, After the end of all that, you have to ask yourself the question of, will it even work? And if you're doing it wrong, then in addition to having a complex network to manage, now you have two problems. Well, here at Boundless, we've developed an approach to help you automate the API process and give you the same benefits of using APIs without writing a single line of code. And we call this the Boundless Flex template. So we'll take a look at that right now. So here we're looking at the Boundless Flex templates. And it works just like a Meraki template in that you can define a standard base configuration and apply that to all of your networks. And because they're flexible, you can easily go and customize them afterwards and customize any configuration parameter that you need to. Flex templates work a lot like Meraki templates. You can define them either from an existing network or an existing template, or you can create a blank one to use with the default network parameters. Here we've imported our existing Boundless Wi-Fi template into the Flex template, and you can see we already have a few parameter sets, such as a syslog servers and the wireless event log. The Flex template lets you configure things such as alerts. You can configure group policies for your policies for the clients connecting to your networks. You can also configure things such as the VLANs for each network you have configured and static routes. You can configure everything around security appliances and level 7 and level 3 firewall rules, as well as port forwarding rules. If you're using VPNs, you can configure the VPN settings through the Flex templates and set in place traffic shaping and quality of service rules. You can also define content filters, blocked URLs, and any other URLs that you'd like to block, as well as ACL rules and access control rules to apply to your networks. If you're using SSIDs, you can select the times where certain networks or ports for your switches are available. And you can even support switch profiles and applying these profiles to your switches. Here you have settings where you can configure SSIDs and select options such as VLANs, or configured certain splash pages, walled gardens, and even firewall rules for the SSID. You can even configure the type of encryption and change the Wi-Fi password for the SSID if you like to apply different password changes throughout your networks. Now, once we've defined our Flex template, you can either deploy this to create a new network, or you can deploy it to one of your existing networks. When you hit deploy, we communicate directly with the Meraki API, and in real time, it writes these changes to your networks so that your networks are updated with the template information. And that way, you can define a base configuration and apply it globally to many networks in your organization just within minutes. And the idea is that this will save you from having to do manual work and go back and correct mistakes by hand that could have been avoided through automation. So that brings us to the end of our presentation for today. We started with the idea that when you have a large number of networks, you might need to apply a uniform base configuration to these networks. Meraki templates give you a simple option for simple cases, but if you need more flexibility and support for different network types, then you need a solution that goes far beyond the Meraki templates. The recommended approach in this case is to use the Meraki API. API development has its own unexpected costs and complexity, and a safer option for you will be to take advantage of Boundless Flex templates. Flex templates give you the power to massively apply unique configuration changes across your organization, but also the flexibility to make custom changes to each network that you need afterwards. And you can use them for MV as well as for system manager networks. Now, You've created a large number of networks through the Boundless batch network creator. You've configured these networks using the Boundless Flex templates. And now the next question we'll look at in our next speed session is how can you proactively audit these networks to make sure that your configuration stays compliant with the internal requirements you've set? In essence, how can you fight configuration drift over time? In the next session, we'll look at the Boundless audit and compliance tools and show you how you can implement compliance checks, which alert you as soon as network configuration you've defined goes out of compliance with your needs and desires. So that's it for today. Let's hear any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Sydney. I'm not sure. Okay, perfect. All right, so I do not see any question on the chat yet, but there is one question that I wanted to ask you. This one is related to the MV cameras. So one of the points that you have mentioned earlier is the fact that currently with Meraki templates, you can not address needs related with networks using MV cameras. How about with the Flex templates?
Sorry, what was that?
Can we use the Flex templates in order to?
Yes. So today, if you're using MV cameras on your network, Meraki's native templates don't support those types of networks. So they recommend you use the API in order to configure those. And since our Flex templates do use the API, then the Flex templates will let you massively configure MV networks. So you can have the same benefits, but without having to do manual work or without having to worry about Meraki templates.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. And another question that I expect to come up in the upcoming sessions is, can we use the Flex templates to change Wi-Fi passwords?
So Flex templates give you a nice simplified way of changing any parameter in the Meraki dashboard that's supported via the API. This means that you can easily routinely change SSID passwords if you use passwords. You can set up captive proto configurations, and you can even change things such as switch profiles if you'd like to set up and automate the deployment of switch profiles for your network switches.
All right, thanks. So we don't seem to have any other questions. So I think this will be the end of the session. We're good in time this time. So I'm just going to, right on the top, if you would like to have a demo call with our experts, so to address any questions that you may have tomorrow or another day, don't hesitate to do so by clicking on the button here above or going on go.boundlessdigital.com/BWS-demo. Okay, got it well. And again, this video is going to be streamed on YouTube, so if you ever want to go back and see it, don't hesitate. That's it for me. Anything else you would like to add, Sydney?
No, just check in next time to see how we use configuration auditing and compliance checks for networks.
Okay, expect to see you all over that. So go on the program and register for the next webinar. Thank you very much, Sydney.
Thank you, Carlota.
Thank you, everyone, and see you in 2 weeks from now.